Hi, this is Randall Schwartz, host of FLOSS Weekly. This week, Michael Tunnell is back. He's joining me to talk about access code, which is a way to get monetization for your open source software. You're not going to want to miss this, so stay tuned. FLOSS Weekly is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is FLOSS Weekly with Randall Schwartz and Michael Tunnell. Episode 570, recorded Friday, March 20th, 2020. Access Code. This episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy with one click. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/floss. And by LastPass. From access to authentication to passwords, LastPass manages every entry point to your business so you can mitigate risk while improving employee productivity. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. It's time for FLOSS Weekly, the show about free, libre, open source software. I'm your host, Randall Schwartz, Merlin at Stonehenge.com, bringing you each week the movers, the shakers, the big projects, little projects you may be using every day and not aware of it, projects you might want to play with right after this show. I think this might be one of those. I'm speaking to you from the Tijuana kitchen set, as we like to call it, because you see the kitchen right behind me, and I'll be here for the next 2 weeks as well, presuming things don't go really weird with the coronavirus. And so far, I seem to have avoided that, but, knock on wood, definitely knock on wood. Joining me for the first time in I think many months, we were trying to figure that out just before the show, Michael Tunnell, back again. And I think I mangled your last name. Why don't you tell me?
You did, but that's all right. It's Tunnell.
Tunnell, okay, it's emphasis on the second syllable. So where are you speaking to us from?
The wonderful state of Alabama, and wonderful in an asterisk next to that.
All right. Yes, right. Yes. I flew down here yesterday, and I seem to so far have avoided, other than being around people in a big metal tube at 30,000 feet, I think I'm probably okay. I'm pretty resilient based on all the track that I've spent all this time going to conferences and things like that, so I should be okay. And I'm not noticing scratchy throat or anything like that so far. We've got an interesting project today. Let's see what the blurb was for it. XS Code is the name of the thing, and I didn't move the guest name into the right place. Uh-oh. This shows some little preparation I was doing for today's show. I was like really crazy. Chen Ravid, and I probably mispronounced that as well. He's the co-founder of accesscode.com. And basically, it has a wonderful promise. Turn your open source project into a steady revenue stream. That sounds like a really good thing to do. Imagine that might come in handy these days because people are being laid off. People are having to work from home. There we go. So, yes. I didn't research much of this because I had a really bad sleep night again. I got to bed early and woke up at 3 a.m. and then I was trying to figure out what to do to not prepare for the show. So I'm kind of a little at a loss for this. What do you know about this so far, Michael?
I think I looked into it a little bit. I think it's got a lot of potential. Like I'm very interested in finding out more about it. I think that this concept is very important. I think that, having open source's biggest issue is really how do you monetize this thing? How do you make it sustainable? How do you continue to do it without having to worry about, do you have enough time to spend to it in your spare time, or can you actually devote more time to it? So I think there's a lot of potential for this kind of service.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we have plenty to talk about today, so let's. We're going to get right into that right after this important message, because this episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Most of us like to browse the internet without the rest of the world knowing what we're doing. We all know about incognito windows and browsers, but did you know that even in incognito mode, your online activity can still be traced? Even if you clear your browsing history, your internet service provider can see every single website you've ever visited. That's why you should never go online without using ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN makes sure that your ISP can't see what sites you visit. Instead, your internet connection is rerouted through ExpressVPN's secure servers. Each ExpressVPN server has an IP address that's shared amongst thousands of users. This means that everything you do is anonymized and can't be traced back to you. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your data in the best-in-class encryption, so your information is always protected. Even when you're using public Wi-Fi, like at a cafe or hotel, ExpressVPN has you covered on every device. Simply tap one button and you're protected. ExpressVPN has the fastest, most trusted VPN on the market. It's rated #1 by TechRadar, Wired, The Verge, and others. Protect your online activity today with a VPN that many people trust to secure their privacy. Visit my special link, expressvpn.com/floss, and you'll get an extra 3 months free for a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/floss. Visit expressvpn.com/floss to learn more. And we thank ExpressVPN for their support of FLOSS Weekly. And now let's go ahead and bring on our guest. Chen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And where are you speaking to us from? I think it's a long ways away.
I'm speaking from Herzliya, Israel, which is a suburb of Tel Aviv, currently in a state of lockdown.
Ah, well, who isn't really? I mean, now it's just getting worse and worse all the time. So, but we need that. We need to stop, spreading it by having people sort of stay put. People are staying there working from home, and people are on self-imposed lockdowns. So it's getting to be a little crazy out there. So I don't know whether I'm safer here in Tijuana or whether I'm safer in Beaverton, Oregon, which I heard there was a number of cases. I mean, the state of Oregon, which is in pretty much a lockdown now too. So I don't know where it's actually going to be safer to be here or be up there. I bet there's going to be more medicine here for taking care of any kind of breach, but we don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so talk to us about how do you pronounce it too? Because it's like XS code.
So we pronounce it access code, like access code. So.
Oh, okay, cool. And tell us the 30,000-foot view. What are people fixing, or when they reach for access code, or when they start using the website?
Okay, so what we're trying to solve is the open source sustainability problem, which you probably all know that it's a big problem, it's a big issue, and a lot of open source developers are looking for a way to get the resources they need to keep developing their projects. So what we are offering is a way for developers to offer products and services on top of the code they host on GitHub, for example. And by that, getting a way of monetization that extends the current ways of monetization, like donations and sponsorships and whatnot. So we basically want to give developers the ability to make money with their code, but while keeping their code open source and free. We don't want the code to close. We want the ecosystem to keep working, and we want we just want to give the developers the ability to and the resources to keep creating the great software we are all using.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's in the 13 years of doing this show, might be 14 by now. I think it's several ways. We've had probably a dozen different funding models. Some of our least favorite ones are things like Open Core, where you get sort of the beginner kit for free, but then you have to pay to get anything that does anything useful. How is access code, I guess? How is that different from many of the other models that we've probably had here on FLOSS Weekly?
Well, the main difference is that our platform is both code agnostic and model agnostic. That means that as a developer, you get to choose how you monetize your code. You can offer services like ongoing maintenance, like priority bug fixing, like consulting, integration, customization, etc. Or you can offer an open core model if that's your thing. We're all for it. And another thing you can offer is paid licensing using a dual licensing model. So basically, we give the developers the flexibility to offer what works for them. Each project is different. Projects are very different from each other, and developers are different, and also the companies who are willing to pay are different. So basically, we want to give developers a lot of flexibility in deciding from pricing to model to whatever they want. And of course, they can still work in tandem with other other methods like accepting donations and the like. So basically, our goal is freedom, and not just in the sense of free software, but also freedom for the developers to decide how they want to monetize.
One of the trickiest things, I think, for people who are trying to get money in is coming up with a suitable, so what do they call it, fulfillment system, a payment system? And how have you solved that problem?
So when users sign up to our platform, we handle all the billing and invoicing for them. So they don't need to incorporate as a company. We basically offer them proven business models that already exist today, like big companies like Red Hat and Redis and Mongo. They already have business models built on top of open source projects. And when a developer joins our platform, he selects the model he wants to work with. And we are the ones who are doing all the heavy lifting in terms of payment processing, subscription management, if the developer wants to offer a subscription and not a one-time fee thing. And basically, we handle all the finances, and that is mainly for relieving developers from the corporate nightmares, we call them, attached to creating a business. And we want developers to focus on writing great software and not handling, all those annoying, pesky taxes and fees and licensing and billing and et cetera. So the developer does not need to have anything. We use Payoneer, which is an amazing payout system to give developers the revenue they are generating in the platform. And it's pretty easy for them to get started.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask which platform you use behind the scenes, but you said Payoneer, and that's one of the interesting ones. How much do you think that it's as far as like a headache comes with using this kind of service for, because they're going to have to do taxes in the terms of like income taxes. How does that handle as far as like the ease of use for the developer getting started with this?
Well, that really depends on the developer, because in terms of taxes, with the deduction of taxes for the developer, we do not handle any of that. The developer needs to file his own taxes, and we don't actually manage taxes for the individual developer. That is done in front of the tax authorities in each country. We just do the payout itself and the billing itself. Anything that is tax related, we can't really interfere.
That makes sense. I was just wondering in general if like you've had a policy like on that specific things. I think a lot of developers would be interested in knowing that kind of policy. I'm also curious. You said that this system works on GitHub, and does it work on any other things? Like, for example, can you use this with Gitlab?
Not as of yet. We just launched the platform this December, so it's fairly new, and we decided to go with GitHub because it's currently the largest. But we are working hard on adding support for GitLab and Bitbucket, and hopefully it's definitely in our roadmap, and hopefully within the next few months it'll be available as well.
Okay, cool. I'm also curious about how earlier you talked about the donation structure and how you offer new other business models and services and this stuff. So how does this relate to something that's kind of in the not in the same realm, but sort of in doing like these Patreon or sponsors campaigns where they have rewards they can sign up for? How do you have that kind of thing how does this differ from that in terms of like what extra services and ease of use the developer has?
So basically, when it comes to donations platform, donations are voluntary, and basically it's an all carrots no sticks approach, and just companies decide how much they want to donate and when, and there's really no exchange of goods or services. It's just out of their own volition, and we've actually investigated this thing and tried to understand why why companies sponsor or donate to open source projects, and I know it's counterintuitive, but most companies, from what we could gather, most companies donate not from the research R&D budget, but from the marketing budget, because donation is good for marketing, and it's not necessarily because of a need. It's more from a marketing perspective, and that's fine, and anything that gets developers the resources they need, we're all for it. But the way we look at access code is not just waiting for someone to donate. It's by giving them actual value that companies can pay for, and creating a new open source economy. Because today, open source, it's a one-way street. Developers work hard, create amazing software. We're all using it. Software companies are using open source components in commercial software. The average big software project uses about from 300 to 1,000 open source components, and they rarely pay for using them. So we want to give developers a way to provide paid value to the companies who are using their code, and by that generating revenue they can rely on, and not wait for a company that might or might not donate, and might or might not redonate or donate again next year. So we want to give the power to the developers and give them the ability to decide how much to charge, what to charge for. They want to give service, if they want to give license, totally up to them.
Yeah, that's actually really awesome. I like the concept of this, this approach. I think that it is definitely something that is very needed. I think that there's a lot of problems with open source code sustainability in many cases, where people are doing it in their spare time, and then companies will then use something for even years and ignore the contribution back and just expect like they're entitled to use it or something. So I think that you're right that there is a big gap in this situation, because there's so much potential for open source company or open source projects to make money, especially from companies that utilize it. And there's also, cases like Redis where all their stuff was being used, and they changed their model specifically because they were not getting, any contributions back and stuff. So like there's a lot of issues in this field. So I'm glad that you're making something like this. And I'm also curious, is there any kind of restrictions or requirements in order to get started with access code? Is there any do you have I know that you probably don't have to close your code or anything, because that would contradict the concept. But are there any restrictions and requirements in order to get started?
Well, basically, the only thing we ask is that you prove that you are indeed the owner of the repository you want to offer products and services on top of. So we know people can't, hijack other people's repositories. Basically, we ask you to install a read-only GitHub app on your repository just to verify you are indeed its rightful owner. And that's the basic thing we require. Once you start diving deeper into the different models, there are certain limitations. For services, there are almost no limitations, but there is one specific limitation. If you are working with a dual licensing model, there are several legal implications of using open source licenses are a bit complex. And if you would want to offer a dual licensing model, you would need to comply with some of the restrictions. We have those on the website. I don't want to dive into the legalese right now, but you would need to be able to relicense your code if you want to offer it with dual licensing model. That usually requires the consent of everybody that donated code to your project before. Without diving too deeper into that, it's pretty simple to get started. But if you want to start, offering complex models, there are several limitations.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. I mean, I know people, the legalese and stuff is not something we want to dive into, because here, too, thereafter, and the first part, whatever stuff, I don't even know what I just said. And there's so many different licensing structures that are like, yeah, I get why you don't want to go into it. But you talked about how you had to verify being the owner and stuff like that. What about projects that have multiple contributors? How do they get involved in doing a thing? And also, how do you distribute the revenue between multiple people who are, let's say a project has five main contributors that are controlling it. How did they, as a collective, get started with using access code?
That's a great question. We know that a lot of projects are developed in small groups, and basically each one of the collaborators on GitHub who has right access to the repository can install the app and start offering it on access code. And on the platform, you can add any other access code user to your project and start sharing your revenue with them. You decide what is the revenue share between each of the contributors, and get going. You can split any project to an unlimited amount of contributors, and you can even change that distribution even if a new person joins the team. So basically, we really believe in offering revenue sharing, and we want to have teams collaborate and create great software together. And it's one of the core features that we implemented early on, because we do want developers to be able to share the revenue, and not just if some guy started a project and we don't want him to keep all the revenue. We want him to spread. It's not obligated to do so, but we highly encourage it.
So I can't let Michael have all the fun. So I'm going to interrupt here for an important message, because this episode of FLOSS Weekly is brought to you by LastPass. Securing every access point in your business is critical, but it's challenging for IT to improve security without impacting employee productivity. LastPass provides you with a balance of strong security that's also easy for your employees to use and manage. With LastPass, employees benefit from a solution that's easy to use while IT maintains control over every login. LastPass offers multiple solutions for businesses. LastPass Identity unifies password management, single sign-on, and biometric multi-factor authentication into one single solution. Adaptive authentication combines biometric and contextual intelligence to prove a user's identity with a variety of flexible MFA options. Eliminate passwords. Leverage biometrics and integrations to streamline access to work applications without ever having to type a password. Secure every access point from web applications to workstations and VPN. Manage every access point in your business. Deploy instantly. LastPass Identity offers more than 1,200 pre-integrated SSO solutions to get users up and running quickly. Granular control without the hassle. Leverage 100+ policies to manage users at the app, individual, group, or organizational level to customize access and authentication requirements. And LastPass goes above and beyond to ensure security for all of its users. Your data is encrypted and decrypted at the device level. Your master password and the keys used to encrypt and decrypt data are never sent to the LastPass servers and are never accessed by LastPass. As the gold standard, they engage trusted world-class third-party security firms to conduct routine audits and testing of their services and infrastructure. Increased security doesn't have to be complex. LastPass makes identity and access management simple for IT to manage and easy for employees to use. Start your journey today by visiting lastpass.com/swit to find out how they can help you. That's lastpass.com/swit. And we thank LastPass for their support of FLOSS Weekly. So let's go ahead and resume some questions here. So we've seen that this is a fairly new project. What are your odds for success? What do you think? Are you gaining new customers?
Yeah, so we launched this last December, and we've been getting a lot of really positive feedback from the developers who are joining the platform. We're having dozens of new developers join daily, and we are optimistic, and we believe that we are offering something that's new, and it's a model that has not been done before for the individual developers, but it has been. These models have been successful for big companies, so we are really optimistic, and the community is giving us so much positive feedback. We just came back from about a month ago from FOSDEM, which is the largest open source convention in Europe. It was held in Brussels just before the Corona outbreak, where everything shut down. And we met with a lot of open source developers. And when we spoke to them about the concept and about the idea, everybody was really excited and really hyped. And we've actually spoken to so many developers, and we asked them, have you ever been contacted by a company that was using your code and wanted to buy a product or a service, like a bug fix or a license from you? And I think from the about 200 or so people we asked, about 25, maybe 30% said yes, that companies have issued like open issues or added pull requests, or just emailed me, listen, I need a bug fix for this, or can we buy a different license for that? And developers were inclined to do so, but there was a lot of complication in actually making that happen because there was no platform to facilitate the billing and the legal framework and the structuring the offering and the communications, and there are a lot of roadblocks if a company wants to work with an individual. So we're hoping we are going to be the platform that eliminates all these friction points and roadblocks and really helps the software companies work with the open source developers. The thing is that the way we see it, software companies already have a relationship with open source developers. They are using their code in commercial projects. And,
Sure.
and the companies we've spoken to are very eager for a relationship with the developers behind the code they are using. And so we are hoping to be the ones who actually make this happen and make a two-sided relationship between the developers and the companies. We think it's in the benefit of everyone.
Cool. And so how did this project get started?
Actually, it started... my co-founder, Nathaniel, which is the CEO, and I, we, in our previous venture, we had a company that was dealing with self-service video ads. It was a very complicated rendering technology on top of browsers, and we used a lot of open source components when we created our product. And we used to joke that open source is free, but expensive, because
Yes.
we had a lot of problems with open source components, and the code itself was free, but the management overhead as a software company of using it was sometimes amazing. And we started digging in, and we found that almost 25% of code maintenance time goes to maintaining open source components that your team didn't write. And when we tried reaching out to developers to get help with their open source components, it's not the components were not good, but we had edge cases, and we needed integrations and customization and dig and start to dive into a big code base you don't really know is complicated. And when our last venture was closed, unfortunately, we decided that we were going to tackle the biggest pain point we had, which was open source components and getting support from the developers who actually create the components. And then that is when XS Code was born.
Cool. And what's the governance look like? Is it the three of you sort of directing the flow of the company?
Right now, it's me and Nathaniel, my co-founder, we are managing the team, and we're about 10 people working in different capacities, from social media and marketing, development, et cetera. And basically, it's just the two of us, and we are investor backed, and looking to get more traction and really making a difference in the open source world.
What's the biggest thing that's missing right now?
You mean in terms of product or in the company? What do you mean?
XS Code.
Well, I think the biggest thing that is missing now is awareness. We want to gain as much awareness from the software company side, not just from the developer side. We want to make sure that companies know that they can now approach open source developers behind the code they are using and ask for products and services and ask for support. And I think awareness is the biggest thing. And for any new startup, that's the traction and awareness are the biggest challenges. And that's what we're facing now. And we're fairly new. As I said, we just launched in December, and hopefully that we'll start getting more and more traction. People would notice us. And as you said at the beginning of the show, it's now our difficult times for developers, and we really hope that developers who need to stay home can start generating revenue and start making money while sitting at home and creating the code they love. And if we can do that, we consider our mission accomplished.
Cool. And Loquacious V2 in the chat room asks our traditional joke question, which is, when will blockchain be incorporated?
Never.
And
we actually it was was a joke early on. We said we're gonna do the payments model in blockchain, and now it's it's not for us.
Cool. Michael, you got some more questions?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you're saying is really interesting to me, and I've done the development for open source, and I'm also a very big contributor in a lot of open source things. What's the process of like just getting involved with the service? Like, let's say, for example, a developer wants to do this. What is the process of getting involved overall? Like, is it just setting up the README thing, or do they have to sign up for a service? And let's say from beginning to end, like how fast could someone get involved with this? Like, what is the burden on the developer in that sense?
Okay, so basically it's fairly easy to get started. You need to sign up on our platform, import your repository, install our GitHub app on your repository and import it. That takes minutes. And then you can start adding items for sale. For example, a service item, or like 5 support hours for X dollars. Or offer an open core model when you can sell a subset of your code that is not publicly available. It's not open source, but still that's a model people like. Or if you want to offer a dual licensing item, so you set up your items, and that can also take a few minutes, and you're good to go. Basically, using the system itself is very simple, and we hope it's intuitive. You do need to prepare in advance if you want to offer, for example, a subset of your code that's like a pro version or a premium version. So you would have to prepare that in advance, and only then upload it. By the way, the way we handle this is by allowing developers to create a private repository on their GitHub account, and we give only paying users access to that private repository. So you can offer the subset of your code on a private repository, so it's easier to maintain. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. You just sign up, and we've had users get started within from 10 minutes to an hour, and that really depends on what you're offering. If you're offering a dual licensing model, that usually also takes time and some preparation, but if you want to offer services, you're good to go in 5 minutes.
Nice. It's very interesting because the way you're describing it, it kind of sounds like this is something that GitHub should have done a very long time ago when they had the private repositories. That seems like a logical step. So you're filling that void, which is really cool. So like, what are the limitations of things that you can sell on Access Code? Is it just anything, or is it just like certain structures with the project? Can they look at it in different revenue streams and different ventures, but still use Access Code to do it?
Yeah, it's not mutually exclusive. You can still work with any other monetization models. We don't really mind. Vice versa. I mean, we prefer developers use as many options as they can to get the resources they need. Basically, there are no actual restrictions as long as you're offering something that is legal and you are capable of fulfilling. If you can't, I don't know, provide 1,000 hours of monthly support, so please don't offer that, because we would probably have a problem with that. But basically, as long as you can fulfill what you are offering, it's fine. You can offer either a service, a code, or a license. So other than that, there's a lot of flexibility on top of that.
So I have a couple questions that are kind of related in terms of like the finance and stuff involved. So first of all, how much does it cost for a developer to get involved? Like, is it like a monthly system, or is it like a transactional system?
It's a transactional system. Using Access Code is entirely free, and you keep 75% of the transactions you make. So you don't have to pay anything unless you're making money. That's pretty much it.
Nice. Well, you actually answered the other question, which was like, what percentage is it? How's it structured? Which is actually interesting because the 75% is higher than the normal standard of doing this kind of platform thing. So that's really cool to hear. So when do you what is your approach for, I don't know, maybe getting new developers involved? Is it more focused on contacting? I understand like the brand awareness is a key thing there, but are you trying to reach out to different developers themselves, the project themselves, or also trying to get companies to help with, companies that already use these projects and how to get them involved as well? Like, what is your main direction of trying to get people who are interested into this project to actually utilize it?
So that's a great question, and we're working on both fronts. We're also working with developers and developer groups and try to get them to start moving their projects into XS Code and start creating items for sale on top of that. And we're very involved in the open source community, both here in Israel where we started, and in the US and Europe. We're starting to get more and more involved with other communities and other projects. And also, we are also working with software companies and major open source projects who have an ecosystem of their own. There are a lot of major open source projects like Redis, for example, who have a lot of open source projects built around Redis. And Red Hat has a lot of a big ecosystem around that. So we're trying to work with projects like those and start gaining the awareness we need to get people moving. So like any other two-sided relationship platform, like any marketplace for that matter, getting both the supply and the demand is equally important. And we're working on both fronts to get as many people on the platform as possible.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm curious also, what do you think is the fundamental piece that you offer to the to the ecosystem that they couldn't do with going to Payoneer or Stripe or something like that? Like, I understand it's like the ease of access, but like, what is do you think is like the main selling point for the service that developers would be wanted to jump onto?
Well, I think that. Well, today, if you would want to do that as an individual developer and start offering products and services on top of your code, you would have all the roadblocks I said before. You would need to set up a billing and transaction processing infrastructure. You would need some sort of legal framework in terms of service and privacy policy and all the legalese that people don't like to handle. You would need to set up some form of communication with your clients. You would need to be able to present and structure what you are offering. You would need a place to do that. And also, there's another thing, which is trust. And basically, and I can say from the software company's perspective, buying things from people on the internet is less appealing to corporations. Corporations like to buy from a trusted party. And a lot of times, it's difficult for companies to buy from individuals. And we see ourselves as being as the trusted third party that's connecting the individual developers and the software companies. And we not just offer the trust, but we offer everything the developer needs to get started quickly instead of, handling a lot of moving parts. And I think first is the ease of use. The second is the trust. And another thing is that even if you would set up a website with a store with the transaction processing and the billing and the Stripe and everything, you would still need traffic, and we bring the traffic. So that's also a key part. If you have an amazing store, but no clients are lining up at the door, so that won't work. So we see ourselves as also the platform that brings in the traffic to the developers and to make sure they actually have people buying.
That's really interesting. I think that the main thing about what I'm interested about this platform is just the ease of access. Like, I'm asking you questions that are, just kind of like if I was as a developer and and not in the same, the bigger level of that kind of thing. But that's the first thing I would want to find out is how much does it save me in terms of time? So the idea that XS Code is available is really, really interesting and really cool because there's so many variables that you have to deal with. You're saying that you essentially have to be a developer and a business manager in order to do this. And that's a very interesting point. And I'm curious about something that's somewhat related to your previous work. Your previous company with like video editing and that kind of thing. I'm curious. This is not necessarily related to Access Code, so sorry if it's like a little bit of a tangent. But I'm curious about what your experience with the open source video editor tools and like which one do you prefer. And just overall, which one do you think is like a good option? And do you think that open source video editing is something that is worth, pursuing in general?
Well, as a person who's been dealing with post-production and video editing for, 20 years or so, it's an industry that suffers from a severe lack of open source. It's a highly proprietary field. And there are so little open source projects in the video editing and post-production field, and it's slowly changing. And I haven't been in the industry for the past 7 or 8 years, so I'm afraid I can't provide any perspective on any current open source projects. I can tell you about FFmpeg, which is an amazing open source project that everybody is using, and it's totally one of my top 3 favorite open source projects ever. But video editing and graphic design suffers from a real shortage of open source initiatives, and I really hope that this would change in the near future. And if Access Code would be able to contribute to that, that's amazing. And even if not, I think there's probably too much power held in a too small number of companies who are doing everything. And I really hope to start seeing video editing tools. I think there's one exception, which is Blender, which is an amazing 3D package when it's completely open source. But that's an exception. I can't name any decent video editing. Well, I don't want to say decent because maybe there's something I don't know. I don't want to say that it's not decent. I can't say I'm familiar with any video editing tools that are widely used and are open source. Maybe I think in graphic design, maybe GIMP is the exception. But
not really.
I really hope to see. Well, in the world
video
of
editing, there are options, but they're mostly like Linux related options. Like there's a few that are like Kden Live or Shotcut and stuff like that, but they're not professional level anyway. So I was just wondering in general, but your point about FFmpeg is fantastic. And I think that FFmpeg is one of those examples that perfectly fits Access Code, because FFmpeg is a fundamental piece that basically everyone who does any kind of video rendering, editing, conversions, or whatever is using. And I don't think FFmpeg has a model other than like maybe donations and stuff like that, because I think they have something with the SPI people, but there's a lot of potential in stuff like that, because there's so many projects like the network time protocol, the FFmpeg. There's just things that are all in the back, like the back burner, and no one really ever sees them because they're just fundamental pieces of other software. So I think Access Code is a fantastic approach to be able to support those. In, like, for example, if you're already making software using those, they could just sign up for Access Code and be able to implement a way of making money from that sense. So I think that's a really awesome idea.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we're almost out of time, so I want to start wrapping up here. Is there anything we didn't ask you that you want to make sure our audience is aware of before we have to let you go?
I think we pretty much covered everything. It's a pretty straightforward tool and pretty straightforward approach, and I really hope people start using and create better software for all of us. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and Redcon5 in the chat room also said, and Image Magic, so that's another one that has a lot of tools, a lot of technology all in there for. All right, so. And I have 2 final questions that I have to get, or else my audience gets mad at me. What's your favorite scripting language?
I'm a JavaScript person.
Okay, that'll work. And what's your favorite text editor?
I'm Sublime person.
Sublime. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, that's been great.
Good choice.
We could probably go on for another hour or so. So maybe we'll have you back in about a year or so to kind of have an update of what's actually happened with Access Code. Yeah, that'll be great. That'll be fun. Anyway, Chen, thanks for coming on the show and talking to us about your new project. And I wish you all the success you have.
Thank you, Randall and Michael. It was great being here.
Okay, great. Thanks. That was Chen. I scrolled it off again. Darn it. Chen Reed? I think it's one of those. Ravid. Oh, there we go. Sorry. You're supposed to be gone by now. What do you think there, Michael?
I mean, I'm super interested in this. I think that there's so much potential in this kind of, there's a problem that is just massive in terms of open source. Like, because basically open source is taken over in terms of enterprise and server and all kinds of stuff. It's now becoming like a staple where big companies are looking into open source first in many ways, but there's still this big gap of, while yes, big companies might be using it, you're not benefiting that project anyway. And there's examples where, giant companies like Amazon were not helping out the things that they were using. And Google in some cases weren't doing that either. And there's a lot of gap in this situation. And I think that there's someone coming in and making a platform that makes it possible for developers to get started in a quick and easy approach without having to worry about all the different business management and stuff involved. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I wish them all the best in this.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, back when we started with open source software, we said, how do you give away something for free and make money at it? And now we have so many different models to choose from that it's almost insane. We need a comparison chart that shows all the different models and downsides and upsides to each of those. Maybe I can get something on the FLOSS Weekly wiki page or something. Anyway, so we're almost out of time, as I said, so I have nothing else to contribute to that particular conversation. Let me scroll down to upcoming guests. Scroll. I had to scroll the other way to get the other one. Next week, we've got F-Droid coming on. It's an installable catalog of free and open source software applications for the Android platform. The client makes it easy to browse, install, and keep track of updates on your device. Hydra, they were rescheduled because of items. It's a framework for elegantly configuring complex applications. PIMCore creates frictionless, personalized customer experiences on top of your master data across all channels and touchpoints in real time. That one's going to be a good one for buzzword bingo, I think. XCPNG, which is a turnkey open source hypervisor. That sounds like fun. Contractor, not actual contractor, but a contractor is a builder of anything. It is targeted to be used as a generic API to create, destroy, and manipulate your resources, no matter what or where they are. This enables you to focus on what you want to make and not have to worry about the details and difference in deployments. And it rescheduled because of spam. My email going out is getting trapped about once every 3 times in the spam filters now. So I have to send out a little short message. It says, I'm going to send out another message, and it's going to be this long. And if you don't get the second message within a few minutes, then email me back and we'll find another way to get it to you. Or look in your spam folder. That's really the right solution for that. So NetData was rescheduled because of that, because they didn't hear from me at all. They thought, are we still on the show? Yeah, you were, but not now. That's when we did that news show, the little quickie news now I'm blanking on everybody's name. It's because I didn't get enough sleep. It's just got to be it. You can go to the homepage for this show, twit.tv/floss. And if you have other suggestions, please tell the project leader or community coordinator to email me. We have a live stream at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, normally Wednesdays, but we get preempted on Friday. We got preempted to Friday. That's what's, and it's on live at twit.tv. You can talk to us there. You can follow us at FLOSS Weekly on Twitter. You can follow me at Merlin on Twitter. And you can join us at the forum twit.community. There's a special thread there, special channel, I think it is. It's specifically for FLOSS Weekly. And almost immediately after the show gets put up, the little article gets made there so we can discuss things there. I have a big plug today. I was working for ZipRecruiter until 3 days ago, and they laid off all of their contractors. This is all related to the coronavirus stuff. So I am now desperately, I was supposed to work for another 2 months on the current contract. So I'm cut off of about a month and a half of income. And I'm desperately looking for new work. I would prefer to be in Perl because I'm an expert in that, but I actually have a lot of flexibility. And I would prefer to be in the SoCal area. So, but I'm willing to telecommute anywhere. So as long as I can get to it from Wi-Fi, I'm happy with it. Yeah, I'm a little under stress right now, a little above stress because I didn't have a lot of money built up ahead of that. I'm down to my last $1,000 actually in between my business and my personal accounts. I get paid another, I think, $8,100 in about 3 weeks, or maybe 2 weeks, presuming they approve the invoice. But it'll be my last invoice for them. So I'm looking. If you got any suggestions, merlin@stonehenge.com, be sure to send them to me, and we'll see if we can get me back employed. I'm thinking of even doing something like a crowdfunding model of some kind. So, because I know that there's been a lot of people that have, over the years, thanked me for the contributions I've made. And if I can get crowdfunded for that, I think I could probably survive a little bit further. So, we'll see. It's stressful. It's stressful, but it's all I can do is do that. So, I hope to get a source of work. Thank you, Loquacious V2. Okay, I think that's all I had to plug. What do you have to plug there, Michael?
Well, you can check out my podcast network where we do destinationlinux.network, and it's mostly Linux and open source related stuff. So if you like this kind of content, there's a lot more available for you if you like it. And you can check out my content on there. I do like 3 different podcasts there, and I also do a bunch of videos that are specifically Linux related, but also open source in many ways as well on my YouTube channel, which you can find at tuxdigital.com. You can also find it from the destinationlinux.network. And we have a big community that we are doing for like the open source and Linux related stuff. So feel free to come check that out because we have a destinationlinux.network/forum and all kinds of stuff like that. And I just really am a big fan of open source and Linux. So if you are too, check out that stuff. And we can connect and maybe contribute or collaborate and stuff and find ways for you to help contribute to various different projects if you're interested in that kind of thing. So be sure to check it out, destinationlinux.network.
Well, Michael, it's good to see you back again. Like I said, it's been, we're trying to figure out before the show how long it's been, but I'm guessing about 6 months, but I could be wrong. It's
I hope it wasn't that
old,
long, but
yeah, we'll see. All right, so so thanks for being on the show, being the co-host, and we'll see you all again next week on FLOSS Weekly.